more on this, let's speak to Techau. He is the director of the German Marshall Fund's Europe programme. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us here on Euronews. First of all, can I get your reaction to this newly announced truce deal between the US and the Taliban?
Yeah, I think the reaction would be mainly skepticism. We've seen the back and forth on the Taliban negotiations over the last couple of years. It is quite clear that the Taliban have a strategic goal in Afghanistan. It has nothing to do with the kind of outcome that the West, that the United States or the Europeans want in Afghanistan. I think, the closer the Taliban can get to getting the Western troops out, and this is certainly one step, in that plan, the better for them. So I would be very skeptical that this kind of thing leads to a lasting peace or to some sort of political arrangement that can last.
You're saying there it'll be better for the US, but what about Europe? If there was a US troop withdrawal, how would that affect Europe's stake in the region?
The European troops on the ground in Afghanistan would then face a situation, an unsustainable situation. They themselves cannot operate without the operational backbone of US forces on the ground. So what we would see is, Europeans following a US withdrawal. The Taliban are acutely aware of this. They know that the Europeans can't operate without the US. So pushing the Americans out means pushing the entire Western presence out.
And you're at the Munich Security Conference where this announcement came forward. What are the primary concerns for the European countries who are attending the event there?
I think this is very much about this brutal security dilemma that the Europeans are walking into with external pressures mounting, both from China and from Russia, while at the same time the United States having less of an interest, less of a strategic focus on European affairs. The Europeans are struggling with this. They're trying to put their own game together. That they find very, very hard to achieve. And so this is about, creating a sense of urgency, creating a way forward for the Europeans in this big reshuffle that we see globally and which affects the Europeans so much.
And the German Marshall Fund, of course, looks at the relationship between the US and Europe. What is your evaluation of the current relationship between the two sides?
It's a very ambiguous thing. The US security guarantee in principle is still in place, but at the same time, the amount of distrust that's in the relationship, especially vis-a-vis Donald Trump, is absolutely graspable. You can see a partial reinvestment of the United States in Europe. Its troop presence is going to be a big military exercise coming and the amount of money being spent in Europe. But at the same time, Donald Trump, with the way that he communicates and the announcement he makes, he basically ruins it for the US. And so the Europeans are looking at this, quite exasperated, not knowing quite what will come next from their most important ally. And you could feel this everywhere. And at the same time, as I said, they find it very hard to come up with their own plans because their own spending patterns and their own complacency in a way is so entrenched that, changing course and guaranteeing their own security without the US is something that would be very, very hard for them if they needed to accomplish it.
Techau joining us there from Munich. Thank you very much.